what kind of cases, not necessarily do you like, but what kind of cases kind of grab your interest? And you said they were the child cases.
Mhm.
How do you, being as young as you are, how do you come up with the questions, or how do you relate to these kids that are as young as they are? And maybe you relate great because you are
Mhm.
so young and they kind of see you and feel like they kind of chat with you. But in terms of how you come up with questioning and how you're going to talk to these kids, have you been to training? Is it a constant thing where, hey, I've not only been to training, but I've got to obviously ask detectives that are older than me and have more
Mhm.
experience? How does that whole thing work for you?
So, um, obviously, are you talking like child victim or child suspect?
Uh, well, I guess both.
So, child victim, with you know, as far as in regards to like sexual abuse or physical abuse, we don't we you know, I went to training, through discussion with other detectives, and that is, when you're first talking with them, it's just minimal facts, the minimal amount of stuff, because we do what's called a forensic interview, um, with a trained specialist, talk to kids, of asking non-leading questions, and not introducing anything into the vocabulary.
Okay, so now wait a minute. Is it when you say there's a specialist, is a specialist in there with you, or are they doing the interview? How does that
So
work?
I do the initial kind of interview if I
Okay,
have to,
okay,
unless they've disclosed to somebody else. Then I'll talk with the parents,
okay,
and I'll set up what forensic interview that St. Luke's runs in Twin Falls.
okay,
It's called St. Luke's Cares. So I'll set up the interview and we'll meet. I don't actually interview the child, if I don't have to,
okay.
because we want is meant. I don't want to ask any leading questions, or a lot of the time kids have a better time talking to somebody who's not a cop, because a lot of cops are always cops are intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
So we bring them down. The parents bring them down to Twin. We meet with parents, and it's a very child friendly conversation, very lighthearted. It's a safe place for them to talk about the things that have happened to them, um, and then after that they kind of get a physical checkup from the nurse practitioner or doctor there. Um, but I'd say that talking with talking with kids is definitely hard, especially when it's they've gone through they've been sexually or physically abused, especially that first initial interview with the emotions. Um, I definitely remember one time talking with a child. I think she was 11 years old. She had disclosed to a classmate, and going in talking with her and the counselor, that she just couldn't say the words, because I kind of needed a general basis to make sure she was safe to go home. Well, because it takes a day or two to set up a forensic interview, so it's kind of like we do the minimal facts interviewing. But she couldn't talk about it, and like her whole emotions and her whole just she just shut down, and it was like, wow, this sad.
Yeah, but we chatted about this, and you said you kind of like those cases. Why do you kind of not necessarily gravitate them? Because obviously cases come in as they come in. Why do you like those cases?
I think I have the hardest drive for this case is just because kids are, we have to protect our youth. Kids, sometimes kids can't stand up for themselves, especially young kids. I think that's the biggest part I find rewarding, is being able to find um, a young kid that's been sexually or physically abused some justice, and making sure that's not going to happen again.
Neil, you don't have any kids, I'm assuming.
No, do not.
Do you think it would? I know it's hard for you to answer this question because you don't, but do you think it would make it harder to work these type of cases if you did have kids?
I think so. I think my image would definitely be a little tainted, especially like, if I had kids of my own. Like, no, you're not going to hang out with other kids, or you're not having a sleepover. And a lot of that has to do growing up. My parents, you're not going on a sleepover. Or, you know, well, we want to know his family, or no, you're not hanging out with that kid.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as maybe a heart, I think so, but I guess you never know until
Right.
it happens.
Yeah.